This guy on today's show, we have a guest who says this. He says, if we outlawed PCR tests, the COVID-19 PCR tests, then the COVID pandemic would be done tomorrow. If we just outlawed the test. And I'm thinking, that's a pretty deep thought. So I thought, this guy's got to be crazy. So I look him up, and I look up people that have talked to him in the past. I've looked up all of his research. Turns out this guy, David Rasnick, is a PhD, and he knows his stuff. David Rasnick, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. I'm glad to be with you.
Hey, let's start off by attempting to discredit you. That way we can get some really good rapport going here. Where'd you go to school?
Georgia Tech. I graduated with a PhD in 1978. I also have BS degrees in biology and chemistry.
And how long did you have to go to school to earn those degrees?
Oh, Lord. Let's see. I guess I was in, well, I got 3 college degrees. I haven't added them up.
How do you make your money? Like, what's your career? What do you do for a living?
Well, I worked for 20 years in the pharmaceutical biotech industry, and I even had my own companies, a series of little biotech companies in the 80s and in the 90s. And I got out of that business in 1996 when I was fed up with the whole industry. It's just a horrible scam.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the energy up pretty high. I'm going to keep the speed up pretty fast. And we're going to pepper you with questions about these PCR tests, okay? First off, what is a PCR test?
PCR stands for polymerase chain reaction. My friend Kary Mullis invented it in 1983, and he got the Nobel Prize in 1993 for the invention. It basically is a way to amplify teeny tiny traces of genetic material into a carload of stuff. It was meant for commercial purposes to produce proteins and things for biotech. It was never intended to be used as a test for any infectious agent at all.
PCR tests. Why does Dr. Birx, why does Dr. Fauci, why do blue state governors seem to be obsessed with PCR tests?
Well, if it weren't for the PCR tests, they would have no way of calculating these cases, I put that in quotes, of COVID, because the CDC itself says that COVID-19 and flu, they have identically the same symptoms and complications. For example, the symptoms are fever, diarrhea, vomiting, fatigue, muscles, so on and so forth. Complications, pneumonia, respiratory failure, acute respiratory distress syndrome, heart attack, stroke, and so on and on they go. The lists are identical. So how in the world do you then distinguish between COVID-19 and the flu? The only way is to have a test that comes out positive, and you call the test a PCR test for COVID-19. That's the only way. Now, the problem is that since the 1990s, that's when the PCR tests were first developed for